Hello guys, and welcome to my tutorial on how to ride a motorcycle. So it's just going to be the very basics today, just for people that are maybe looking at buying a motorcycle, looking at learning to ride one. So yeah, let's begin. This is my Honda CBR, it's a 125. So I got this a few days ago actually, on a really good deal. It was a 2014 plate and it had about 35 miles on it, so amazing deal. Still got my L plates. I mean, I've been riding for 2 years, but my previous bike, it was really crap. I'll probably go into that on another video, but that's mainly the reason that I didn't have the motivation to do my tests. So these will be coming off very soon. So without further ado, let's begin. So with a motorcycle, the main thing that kind of scares people away is probably the gears. So I mean, it's easy. Obviously you need to get the feel for your bike. It's going to be different for everyone. So the first thing you want to do is turn on the ignition, obviously, and you hear the little noise and stuff. Obviously bear in mind all bikes are different, but regardless, turn on the ignition. Now this is the electric start. Some bikes have a kick start, mine doesn't, but the electric start, you just click it and it starts up the engine, which you can then rev up. So normally a main rule when you go to ride your motorbike is let it warm up. I've just rode out here, so mine's already warm. And luckily for me, I've got a temperature thing there that tells me what temperature my bike is, and my bike is dirty. I need to give it a clean. So yeah, let me show you around what's what. So these are my headlights. So bikes nowadays that are made, the lights are always on. I can't remember what year upwards, but this is a 2014 plate, like I said. You can't turn the lights off. If you click this, that engages the high beams, and then you get your indicators. Click the middle to turn off, and right to go right. Pretty simple stuff. You get your horn, which all horns on a bike sound a bit puny, to be honest, but you know, there we go. That's how you can tell if it's a motorbike, I guess. And yeah, so this here is your clutch lever. This is what you're going to be using a lot and learning the most about when you first get your motorbike. And then this is the front brake, and you have your rear brake down there, and you have your gear lever down there. So this is where people get confused, because believe it or not, a lot of people assume that that's the rear brake, that's the front brake, these are your brakes. Maybe if you're riding like a moped or a scooter or something, but not in this case. So my gear lever is, if you click down once, that's gear 1, and then to go up to, my bike goes up to gear 6, so if you want to go up to 2 and above, you just flick up until you're in the correct gear. So it's 1 down and then the rest are up. And then neutral is halfway between 1 and 2. So normally if you would go from 1 to flicking up to 2, you would just do a half flick and that puts it into neutral, which means you're stationary, you don't have to hold in the clutch. So let's get on the motorbike. Let me show you what I mean. So take off the kickstand. That's one thing I guarantee you'll start forgetting when you first ride. So to go into gear 1, you want to squeeze in the clutch and press down, and you'll see that neutral is disappeared. Now it's back. So let's do that again. Hold in the clutch, press down, You're now in gear 1. Some bikes have gear indicators, some don't, it's just the way it is. And to start moving, oh sorry, that's my phone going off. To start moving, you're going to need to give it throttle, otherwise you're going to stall the engine. Let me give you an example of what stalling the engine is. I don't really want to do this, but here we go, for the sake of teaching you guys. So if you just let go, see what I mean? The engine's just going to cut out and it's just going to jolt forward. That's not what we want. And trust me, that will probably happen a lot. So let's go in. Oh, we're already in gear 1. So I'm going to give it a little bit of revs. You see it's on about 1,500 revs. I'm just going to raise the revs and slowly release my clutch. Did you see that? I slowly release my clutch, and there's something called a biting point where whilst you're revving, as you're releasing the clutch, you start to feel the bike bite and start moving forward. That's called the biting point. So give it revs and release slowly and you'll start to move. I mean, you're not going to do it first time while watching this video, but you are going to have to get the feel for your bike even when you switch to a new bike. You know, you might not stall it, but you do have to get used to how the clutch feels. So let's wait for this van to go and we'll ride up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm in first gear, I'm going to increase the revs and slowly release the clutch, and you'll see me start to move. Do you see that? And then squeezing clutch, I've flicked up into second gear. I just wanted to just get past those people so don't interrupt. So I'm now cruising in second gear, and because I'm in second gear whilst moving, I don't have to touch the clutch, the gear lever, because I'm now in this gear. So let me just stop over here, and I can talk to you a little bit more about the other gears. Now let's just stop here. Because I was in gear 2, I bought the bike, I put the bike straight into neutral instead of straight down into first gear. That's going to be essential for when you're stopping. You can, however, stop in first gear if you're not stopping for long, you're just at traffic lights. You can just hold, and then when you're ready to go again, increase the revs, slowly release the clutch till you find the biting point. And one thing to mention is when you find that biting point, hold on the biting point. Don't keep releasing your hand because you'll probably stall. So I've got the biting point, I'm holding on the biting point, and then as you start moving away, you let go. You let go of the clutch, not fast. You don't want to just drop the clutch, because that's not going to be a very smooth gear change. So I'm currently in second gear, just cruising along. So let's turn around. I've just dropped into first gear because I'm slowing down, and we're gonna turn all the way around and we're gonna go. Now you'll probably find that you're not going to be in first gear for very long. You're going to want to just use first gear to start moving, and then you're going to switch straight into second gear. Now a thing that confuses some people is I'm in second gear. People think that it goes first, second, third, fourth. It doesn't go up, it just goes like that. It's like a switch. So if I want to go into third gear, it's just up again and I'm in third gear. Second gear, drop down. You do have to drop and go up in a sequence. You can't just like select what gear you want to be in. Well, I mean, technically you can, but for example, I'm in third gear. If I want to go straight down to 1, holding the clutch, press down twice because I was in third gear, and I'm now in first gear, but my clutch is in, so technically this gear isn't engaged until I release the clutch. See? Now, let's go over here. Let's talk a little bit about steering. When it comes to steering, when you're at low speeds, you're not going to want to start leaning your bike around. It's just not the way. It's just not going to work. You'll probably fall off. So go into first gear. We're going to start moving, and because we're at such low speed, well, we're stopped, but we're going to be going at low speed to get out of this little junction here. We're going to use the handlebars like this. See? I use them to get out. And now all I do really is just push and pull on the handlebars, and the bike leans on its own. Now, I'm not saying that you want to go like dragging your knees across the floor, because, you know, you're going to fall off unless you really know what you're doing. But I mean, steering comes really natural. You need to get the feel for the steering of your bike and how much tolerance it can take and how far you can lean it and turn over and stuff. But steering is pretty simple. When you're going high speeds, obviously you're going to have to lean your bike a bit more to compensate for the speed. But yeah, leaning, it all comes natural. Steering, sorry, all comes natural. You will get the feel for it when you're on your motorbike. So let's turn around up here and talk about the brakes. Let's just turn around without falling off. I'm now in third gear, climbing in the acceleration, going into fourth gear. See? Now when you first start off, if you have a new motorbike like me, you're not going to want to go up high in the rev ranges to where it redlines, because that's not going to be good for your engine. There's a lot of argument about it. Personally, I just stick to what the manual says. Don't do high revs, and don't stay at the same constant speed for too long while the engine's braking in. Luckily mine's only for 300 miles. I'm currently at 210 miles, so my braking period's almost over. But let's talk about the brakes. Drop into first gear and stop. So your brake is obviously, you get your front brake on your right lever, and you get your rear brake, I don't know if you can see that, on your foot. Now you're gonna use your front brake for pretty much all of your stopping. Let me just get out of the way of this car. It's coming up here. For example, a higher percentage of your braking is going to be on your front brake. Your front brake has more stopping power than your rear brake. Some bikes can tolerate higher braking on the rear brake. However, this bike and the way this is styled, like a sport bike style, can tolerate a lot of front brake. I think I do about 70% front brake, 30 back, sometimes a little bit more, depends. And obviously those conditions really change in the wet, but I will do a video covering what it's like to ride in the rain. So yeah, let's do a little braking thing. Let's try braking with just the rear brake. I wouldn't recommend doing this because you can skid up your wheel, lock it up, and you'll be skidding along the road. So if we just use the rear brake, see, I mean, I didn't stop in a quick enough time. So if I'm just using the front brake, see how quick I stop? I over-revved a little bit there, but so what I do is called combined braking. Let's move out the way. There's a van coming down. So I do something called combined braking, where it's I do 70% of my front brake and 30% of my rear brake, and I just find that gets me stopped the quickest, and it doesn't put as much pressure on my front and I just feel kind of safer. So this is with both brakes, so see that? My back wheel actually skidded a little bit there because there was some mud on it, so be careful of that. Don't ride on the mud. Oh, first gear. See, noob mistake. I'm still learning myself. So let's go a little bit faster and test these brakes out. So imagine that bump there is a truck. I want to stop before I hit it. So I used pretty much mostly my front brake, a little bit of my rear brake. Try to do, if your bike doesn't have ABS, which is basically just a system that stops your bike from locking up, your brake, sorry, then try and just like kind of pulsate your back brake a little bit. Don't hold constant on your rear brake, and also the same on your front brake as well. So let's do one more try. So I'm going to hold in the clutch and I'm going to start braking, and I'm going to flick down into first gear. Just before you stop, every time you stop, if you're in a high gear, you're going to want to, say for example I'm in fourth gear, as you're stopping you want to lower your gears so that when you stop you were in first gear or neutral. Because if you're in, say for example I was going along in sixth gear, if your bike has 6 or 5 gears, it's, you know, it just depends. If you're going along in your highest gear and you just stop and you're in 6th gear, you're going to have a lot of trouble trying to get that bike out of sixth gear while sat still. It's not easy. It gets stuck. At least with my previous bike it did. I'm not sure about this bike. I haven't tried it. I don't really want to. So yeah, that's the basics of braking. But I highly recommend that when you first get your bike, you take it out into a place like this, like what I'm doing now, and you test out all of its limits. So you test how much it can rev, and you test tolerance of the brakes. See? You test how well you can brake on that bike. And that's the basics of riding a motorcycle. I think I covered most stuff. I'll probably go under some kind of basic maintenance of the bike in another video as well. But yeah. Also, another tip for your brakes: always make sure that your brake fluid is clean and at a high enough level. I mean, normally it would be done if you take your bike for a service and stuff. But yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. So yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything. We've gone across the gears, the brakes, the steering. And actually one last thing I wanted to speak about was the weight of a motorcycle. Some people get scared when they first get on a motorcycle because they're like, oh, you know, it's heavy, am I going to be able to keep my balance? The second that you are moving on your motorbike, balance almost means nothing. Obviously you need to be able to ride a bike to be able to have that balance there, but when you're on a bike, okay, it's quite heavy. This is a 125, so it's not that heavy, but if somebody was just to sit on this bike, they would be like, whoa, this is heavy. You know, it's when you move from side to side, it's heavy, you feel the weight shifting. Basically, when you're moving, let's get moving. When you're moving, you don't really have to think about the weight. The bike kind of carries itself and you're just kind of on it. The only way you steer is, I mean, when you're moving, the motorbike feels light, really light. You can just slightly push and lean and the motorbike steers to where you want to go. Thank you, kind sir. Let me pass, that's nice. You really don't have to worry about the weight of a motorbike. It's not an issue. Some bikes are heavier than others, and it probably is. You probably will notice some difference in those kind of bikes. However, the only time it really does matter is when you go to stop, because when you stop, you're going to put your feet on the ground and you're going to want to be able to support the weight of that motorbike. So now we're back out onto the open road. There we go, we're back onto the open road. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative for you. And I am going to be doing more motor vlogs and stuff on this channel. But let me know what you guys thought. If there was stuff I missed out that you wanted to know more about, it'd be great to hear your feedback, and I guess I'll see you guys in another video. So cheers.